Have you ever had one of those weeks where you're not thriving? You're just trying to survive? Because that's been my life lately. My husband was traveling this week, which meant I was in full solo parent mode. And if you're a parent, you know there's a big difference between parenting together and parenting when it's just you holding down the fort. At the same time, work is in one of those intense seasons where there's a lot happening, a lot moving, a lot of pressure. I am in the thick of it. And then, because life loves to stack things, or maybe I like to stack things together for my life, our pool is being finished right now, which sounds glamorous until you realize that means our entire backyard is basically a construction zone. So the dogs, they can't just run outside anymore. Every single time they need to go out, I'm putting on shoes, grabbing a leash, and walking them around the neighborhood multiple times a day. Meanwhile, I'm trying to stay consistent with my workouts, which lately means Peloton rides and lifting free weights in the dark at 5 a.m. before the kids wake up. It's not glamorous. It's not aesthetic. It's survival mode. And if I'm being honest, I think a lot of us are living there more often than we admit. Welcome to this episode of Fit Fueled Female. I think there's this pressure, especially for ambitious women, to feel like we're always supposed to be thriving. Like, if we're doing life right, everything should feel balanced and optimized and flowing. But sometimes the assignment isn't thriving. Sometimes the assignment is just surviving. And surviving can be hard, like really hard, because surviving means you're still showing up, you're still moving forward, but it doesn't feel polished. It doesn't feel like you have it all together. And if I'm honest, the last 2 months in this new role have felt a lot like that. Every single day has been about figuring things out, trying to stay ahead of how fast everything is moving, learning people, learning processes, making decisions, setting direction, making sure I'm keeping up with the pace of the business. And when you're in leadership, there isn't really a pause button. You just kind of keep moving. You keep having to show up. You keep figuring it out as you go. And then I look at my personal life right now and I think, oh my gosh, wow. Everything around me also kind of feels like survival mode. Solo parenting while my husband is traveling, a backyard that's basically a construction site while the pool is getting finished, walking the dogs multiple times a day because they can't just go out in the backyard anymore, early morning workouts in the dark because that's the only time that exists. None of it is bad. In fact, a lot of it is actually really exciting. But when it all stacks at once, it can feel like you're just trying to keep your head above water. And when I say keeping your head above water, I really mean it. Because this week felt like a whirlwind and honestly a logistical nightmare. I was thinking the other day that if someone had a video camera on me all week, they would probably be exhausted just watching the playback. I mean, we're talking 5 a.m. workouts before the house wakes up. Then it's walking the dogs, feeding them, getting the kids up, making sure they're fed, dressed, backpacks packed, and somehow getting everyone out the door by 7:30. Oh, and also remembering to feed myself somewhere in there. Then it's straight into work, back-to-back meetings all day long, the kind where you look at your calendar and there isn't even a 15-minute break to breathe. At one point, I had to literally block my calendar just so I could leave to pick one of the kids up from school. Our nanny grabbed the other one, but then I had to drive halfway across town to meet her, grab my daughter, drive back across town again, only to turn around later and head right back that direction for a dinner or an event. It was honestly insane. I felt like I was just all over the map, physically and mentally, running around like a crazy person trying to keep everything moving. And every time I would get to the next destination, I'd just sit in the car for a second, take a deep breath, and then immediately have to jump right back into the next thing: meeting, school pickup, dinner, emails, bath time, dog walk, repeat. By the time Friday came around, I was mentally exhausted, like that deep kind of tired where it's not just physical, your brain is tired, your nervous system is tired, your decision making is tired. I finally closed my computer around 7 p.m. on Friday night. I went downstairs, had dinner with my husband, and we just talked about our week, or really didn't talk much at all. I hugged my kids and then I basically said, I'm done, I'm out. And I went to bed at 9. And then the weekend comes, and I'm not going to lie. I woke up Saturday morning, looked outside, saw that it was raining, and my first thought was honestly relief because my son had a soccer game that morning. And if I'm being honest with you, I just didn't know how I was going to fit in one more thing. Between working out in the morning, getting my daughter to dance, an event in the afternoon, the schedule was packed. So when I realized soccer was canceled because of the rain, I actually felt grateful. And that's when it kind of hit me because the weekend is supposed to be the time where things slow down. But lately, it hasn't really felt that way. It feels like the weeks roll into the weekends and the weekends roll right back into the week again. Sunday comes and it's church and prepping for the week and doing laundry and grocery shopping. And before you know it, you're right back into Monday again. And that's honestly what these past couple of months have felt like, just this constant rhythm of go, go, go. And I found myself sitting there thinking, what are my kids thinking about all of this? Am I actually doing this well? Am I showing up the way I want to? How am I doing this? And honestly, what the heck is going on right now? And I think this is where a lot of women find themselves. Because on the outside, everything might look like it's going great. Career is growing, life is moving forward, things are happening. But on the inside, you're sitting there wondering, am I doing this right? Am I present enough? Am I working too much? Am I doing enough? And that's the tension that a lot of us live in. And maybe you're listening to this right now and you're nodding your head because you know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe your life looks a little different than mine. Maybe it's not kids and soccer games and dance and work events. Maybe it's work deadlines. Maybe it's caring for family. Maybe it's just life stacking things on top of each other in a way that makes it feel like you're constantly trying to keep up. Whatever it looks like for you, if you feel like you're in survival mode right now, I want you to pause with me for a second. Take a breath. Because the truth is, when you're in a season like this, it can feel like everyone else has it figured out. Like everyone else is thriving while you're barely keeping the wheels on the bus. But the more women I talk to, the more I realize something. A lot more of us are in survival mode than we admit. We just don't say it out loud. We post the highlight reel, we show the wins, but the behind the scenes reality, it's messy, it's chaotic. It's trying to juggle work and family and health and relationships and responsibilities and still somehow be the best version of ourselves. And that is not easy. And I think the reality is, it's just hard. I remember reading somewhere recently that your 40s are actually the most exhausting decade of your life. And when I read that, I kind of laughed, but I also thought, wow, that really hits. Because on one hand, this is exactly the life I worked so hard for. In my 20s and 30s, I was grinding, building my career, working late, pushing for the next step, trying to create this life for my family. And now I'm here. And some days I look around and think, wait a second, I worked so hard to get here. And now all I have is exhaustion. Don't get me wrong, I'm incredibly blessed. We have such a beautiful life. Sometimes I look out the window at our backyard, which is literally about to have this resort style pool, and I think to myself, in a million years, I never thought something like this would be possible for me or for our family. And that's the thing, right? You work hard, you build the life, you create opportunities for your family that maybe you didn't have growing up. But sometimes I catch myself wondering, is it even worth it if you're too busy to enjoy it? And I don't have the answer to that. I really don't. I think all of us are just trying to figure out some sort of balance. And when both people in a household are working, it can feel even harder because there's no off switch. There's no one person holding down the home front while the other focuses on work. You're both literally doing everything: work, parenting, schedules, life. And then on top of all of that, I'm also entering this really strange new phase of parenting. My son is 7 now, and he's starting to become independent, which is amazing, by the way, but also really terrifying. Every day after school, he wants to go out and play with his friends in the neighborhood. And honestly, I love that. I love that they are outside. I love that they're having adventures and riding bikes and doing the kinds of things kids should be doing. But at the same time, it freaks me out because half the time I'm like, wait, where did he go? Which house is he at? What street did they ride down? I always said I would never give my kids a phone until they were like 16. But now I'm all, okay, maybe it's time for an Apple Watch or something because I honestly don't know how else to keep track of him. And I think that's the part of survival mode too. Life, it just keeps evolving. Your career evolves, your kids evolve, your responsibilities evolve, and you're just constantly adjusting. And I think when I step back and really look at it, the career, the kids growing up, the chaos of the schedules, the construction in the backyard, the constant moving pieces, it's all kind of brings me back to some realization. This is life, not the curated version we see online, not the perfectly balanced version we all wish existed, but real life. This is kind of where some seasons feel calm and easy, and other seasons feel like you're just trying to keep everything moving forward without dropping the ball. And maybe survival mode isn't something we're supposed to avoid. Maybe it's actually a sign that we're in the middle of something important. Building a career, building a family, building a life. None of those things happen in perfectly balanced, peaceful seasons. They happen in the messy ones, in the chaotic ones, in the ones where you look back later and think, wow, I don't even know how we got through that. And something else I read recently really stuck with me. It said that your 40s are actually when a lot of women become millionaires. And that hit me too. Because the reality is, I'm still in my prime earning years. This is the season where all my work from my 20s and 30s starts to compound. And at the same time, I also have a goal in my head. And it might sound a little crazy, but I don't really want to be doing this past 45. I know that's only 3 years from now, but I want to be more present with my kids when they really need me to be present. And the funny part about that is, that's also the age where they probably won't want me around so much. But that's exactly when I'll need to be there. I'll need to know who they're hanging out with. I'll need to be more involved in their lives, even when they roll their eyes and pretend they don't want me there. And that's a goal I'm striving for. Now, I don't know if it will happen exactly like that. You plan, God laughs. So maybe it's 46, maybe it's 47, but I can tell you this, I won't be doing this past 50. And that doesn't mean I want to suddenly become a stay at home mom. That's just not within my DNA. But it does mean transitioning into something different, something that gives me more freedom, something that aligns with the things I really love. Maybe it's opening a fitness studio. Maybe this podcast grows into something bigger. Maybe it's public speaking. I honestly don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but I know the direction I'm moving toward. And when I find myself in these survival seasons, when the stress feels like a lot, when the schedule feels impossible, when I start thinking I can't keep going at this pace, I remind myself of my why, what I'm building, what I'm striving for, and the life I'm trying to create, not just for myself, but for my family. And I think that's the realization I keep coming back to lately. Maybe survival mode isn't something to run from. Maybe it's actually the season where a lot of the important things are happening, the building, the learning, the stretching, the moments where you're juggling more than you thought you could handle, but somehow you figure it out anyway. Because when I really step back and look at my life right now, it's easy to focus on the exhaustion, the packed schedules, the constant moving pieces, but it's also a season where a lot of really beautiful things are happening too. My kids are growing, my career is growing, our family is building a life that years ago we could only ever imagine. And sometimes when you're in the middle of building something meaningful, it's going to feel messy. It's going to feel overwhelming. It's going to feel like survival mode. And maybe that's not failure. Maybe that's just the messy middle. So here's the power move for you this week. If life feels heavy right now, if your schedule feels packed and your brain feels tired and you're wondering whether you're doing any of it well, take a second and ask yourself one simple question. What am I building right now? Because sometimes when you zoom out, you realize the chaos actually has a purpose. Maybe you're building a career, maybe you're building a family, maybe you're building a future that gives you more freedom later. Whatever it is, survival seasons usually mean something important is under construction. And that doesn't mean you're failing. It usually means you're in the middle of something that matters. So, what's been fueling me lately? Honestly, AI. And I know that might sound funny, but I am dead serious. Without it, I'm not sure I'd be surviving some of these weeks. Now, part of that is because the explosion of AI is actually tied to my livelihood. My job is literally helping companies secure AI and SaaS environments. So, staying on top of it isn't optional, it's part of the paycheck. But all joking aside, AI has genuinely helped me become more efficient. And that's something that's mattered to me for a long time. I'll never forget when I was early in my leadership career and also becoming a new mom. One woman looked at me and said something that stuck with me. She said, "Your life is about to change, but the key is learning how to be incredibly efficient during your workday because your time outside of work is going to become a lot more precious." And I'll never forget that because the reality is when you're juggling work and kids and life, the goal isn't to work more hours, it's to make the hours you do have count. And that's where AI has actually been really helpful. If it helps me write an email in 15 minutes instead of an hour, I'll take it. If I can use it to quickly look up recipes, get style advice, figure out home decor ideas, or decide what countertop to pick for my outdoor kitchen or a pool structure, I am all about it. Anything that helps create a little more efficiency in the day is a win in my book. But ultimately, what that gives me is something even more valuable: time. So, if there's one thing I'm reflecting on in this season, it's this. Sometimes life isn't going to feel balanced. Sometimes the weeks blur into the weekends and the weekends blur into the weeks. Sometimes you're juggling work and family and responsibilities and wondering if you're doing any of it well. And in these moments, it can feel like you're just surviving. But maybe survival season aren't a sign that something is wrong. Maybe they're just the seasons where the building is happening, where you're growing, where your family is growing, where the life you've been working towards is slowly taking shape, even if it feels exhausting in the moment. So if you're in a survival season right now, give yourself a little grace. Take a breath, zoom out, and remember that sometimes the middle of the story is the hardest part, but it's also where the most meaningful things are being built. So until next time, stay fit, stay fueled, and stay resilient. I can't wait to see you soon.